Hey there guys, and welcome to Naked Reality, a podcast all about stripping bare mental health. We're going to hear from people all over the world sharing their stories, their experiences and their journeys with what they've been through in their life. But now it's time to get naked with our next guest. During all of our episodes in this podcast, we do cover sensitive topics. So if you or anyone you know is suffering with anything that we discuss, please listen to the end of the episodes where we can find contact details for us or support lines to help you with what you are going through. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and we are back with another episode of Naked Reality. Getting naked in the studio today with our next guest, but not literally. But I want to welcome my good buddy Brett, who's come on today and got some really interesting stuff to talk about, as well as some pretty amazing stories to share, man. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Joey, for the invitation. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, man, it's great. It's been a long time coming, this, bro. I've only had a podcast for a few years now, but it's like we've had some pretty cool conversations over the years. I know we just reconnected now after 3-4 years, maybe a little bit longer. Because obviously we were in, I won't name the name of the course, but we were in a course together, little group. And the last time I remember seeing you, we went on a nice hike in the Perth Hills, and we sat down, shared our time with another group of beautiful people as well, which is was really cool. Nice little memory.
Yeah, it was.
So Brett, man, you before we jumped on, you were telling me a little bit about what you do now, and you've studied with some of the leading educators in neurology, quantum physics, and epigenetics, and you've sort of using this, right, to help people get clear on their purpose, to be able to step into their power and unlock their potential using the science of transformation. Is that right?
Yeah, spot on.
Beautiful. Look at that. See, I wrote it down and everything. See. So, man, tell us a little bit about obviously for myself, I know a little bit about neurology. I'm sort of delving into the field of quantum physics, but epigenetics, I probably know a little bit about it, but I'm not really too clued up on the name. So tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Epigenetics in particular?
Epigenetics, quantum physics, neurology, all of it, man. Yeah.
So, where do I start? So we've opened up a can of worms. So epigenetics so epi means outside the genes.
Yeah.
Right. So anything outside of our cells is actually what changes our genetic expression. So if we're in a stressful environment and our bodies are producing cortisol and adrenaline and neuroepinephrine, our cells, right, they're being indicated to be in this state of fight or flight, so they're not going to be able to rejuvenate, repair, turn on the genetic expression for healing, and so this can then downregulate cells. This can cause, and this is what actually leads to disease. We're now finding out is that our perceptions of our reality can actually shape illness and imbalance in the body. Got you. Right. So what really led me through this is when my mum got breast cancer. And I started diving into the mind-body connection. And this stuff it's really challenging the status quo right now. You know, our paradigm of we live in a Newtonian, clockwork kind of universe. Everything's all gears and cogs. That system is being completely thrown out the window. But particular industries rely on that system. So they're hanging on just like 500 years ago, the church was the leading influence in the world. It was hanging on to, as science started to break through and shed some myths, it was the dogma of the time. Just like now, there's scientific materialism is the dogma. Is like, if you can't see it, it's not real. And, you get people, go, oh, that sounds like woo. But there's so much we don't know. And what we know today about science will be, completely changed in the future as we start to expand our awareness, but it takes time.
Yeah, man, it's I couldn't agree more that it takes time, and we're proven through history, right, that every 10, 30, 50 years what we consider as fact has been enhanced or has been expanded on, and has been delved into a little bit more to help understand. And I guess this is sort of on that line, isn't it, where we've had a basic understanding of the past, of how this works, and some people have kind of winged it, some people kind of understand it, but there really starting to be a lot of good scientific data that's being collected around this, right?
Oh, totally. Like, for instance, like one of the things is in epigenetics is that an experience that our 5 generations back can be still encoded in our DNA. So if you think about, like, the first humans, they might have seen a lion, and they might have been like, oh, what's this thing? And then all of a sudden it attacks, and they see it kill one of their loved ones. That then is encoded into their genes. And so the next offspring has a higher chance of survival. When they see the lion, they know to run straight away. And so this can happen 5 generations back in our lineage. And so we have these experiences that are encoded in our DNA, and these emotional triggers, these emotional cues that from our environment, we can react in the same way. So I believe that we are here and we are understanding this now, and when we get an understanding of it, we now have an obligation to do something about it, to break the cycle, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's basically like, this is something I guess I see in the coaching space and talking to a few other people on episodes and stuff. It's, for example, it's these fear responses. These responses are like the line you were saying that could still be encoded in our own DNA today. These, I guess, are primal responses that we don't necessarily need because there's not lions about, right? But they show up in in day-to-day life as fears that we, not necessarily when it comes to like live animals and running away from lions, but just really, really small things like some people struggle with getting out the house and having this fear of socialization and things like that. Am I on the right path there?
Yeah, 100%, man. So now we're delving into like the study of axiology, which is revolutionizing modern psychology as we speak. So it follows the principles of quantum physics as well, and particle physics. So all fears can be stemmed down to 2 primal fears: fear of the predator and fear of losing prey or food or sustenance. So every single fear within our environment goes back to those. So anything that supports our purpose, right, is going to be seen as the prey.
Okay.
Anything that challenges our purpose is going to be seen as the predator. And so we're either going to be in like fear of losing, what's meaning to us and important is basically going to activate the fight or flight nervous system, also known as the sympathetic nervous system. And same with if we see something that's going to challenge our purpose, we're going to get activated as well, and we're going to be in this state of fight or flight. And so anything that challenges or we perceive supports it and we might lose it, right, will activate that primitive part of the brain, the hindbrain, the animal brain, which is like your limbic system. This is where all your this is your emotional center. This is where we get caught up in either emotions like, I don't know, a perfect example would be when someone, we've all been there where we're working at a day job and we get our pay for the week. We get these elated feelings. Oh yeah. And what do? We go and blow it all. Most people go and blow it all. They spend it on all these things. And then by the end of the week, they're getting the depressed feelings because there's nothing in there, and they're stressed about the bills and what's coming through. And they go through this constant cycle on a weekly basis, or fortnightly basis, or a monthly basis.
Yeah. And
so all of those, all our fears can be stemmed back to those 2 primal fears: losing what's important to us, the prey, sustenance, food, whatever supports us, or being challenged by the predator. Being caught up in something that we're afraid of, fearful of. And you can look at every single area of life and you can see how that relates to those 2 fears as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. I love the depth that you went to there in terms of like how the brain works and how it relates to these different things. Obviously, man, like this is this is quite intellectual stuff. Like, this isn't something that's taken, you just read a book on and you start to learn this stuff overnight. This is going quite deep into the way the human mind works and how it relates to the body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did this like path and interest you? You mentioned something about your mum with breast cancer. Like, how did you go from being in that sort of experience and to really diving in and studying this?
Well, if I'm going to share that, I got to go way back when.
Yeah.
So
go as deep as you need to go, brother.
Okay. So growing up, I was, I seen a lot of domestic violence in the home. So one of my very, very earliest memories is I'm about 6 years old and I hear my mum and dad yelling and screaming at each other, and I walk into the kitchen and they're like having it out. My dad pushes mum through a wall. Mum gets a knife out of the drawer, stabs dad in the leg. I see him tie a towel around his leg, limp out the door, because she got him in the calf. And this is something that I grew up with in my environment. And from there, I became this troubled kid at school where I would isolate myself, and I was afraid to connect with anyone. I thought, like, if anyone found out this deep, dark secret that, I'd be ostracized, I'd be criticized, imagine if, the school found out, like, I had this, like, some part of me that I had to hide. So I disconnected and, I was very alone through primary school. And it was good in the sense that I got to be with myself and I got to understand and observe myself and observe others. And then as I went into high school, I started getting bullied a lot and getting picked on. And so I had to learn how to defend myself because I started to get physical abuse. And so I started fighting, and I started, I was a fat kid at school, so I started winning, and I started to gain all this respect and power from my peers. And so at lunchtime, I would be either picked out for a fight by another bully, rivalry, or, encouraged to start a fight. And so I got caught up in this, like, kind of bloodlust. And, I, deep down inside, there was a part of me that didn't want to hurt anyone. That was actually really caring and kind. And I didn't want to be in this situation, but I had to put on this front and pretend that I was, this macho dude. And then as I got out of school and started, year 10, I remember it clear as day. I decided to leave school in year 10. I got sent to the principal's office, and as I'm walking to the office, I had this slip in my hand, and I screwed it up, threw it in the bin, and that was the first decision I made, like, on my own, that I wasn't going to go back to school and I was going to start working for myself and working. And so I started all these, shit kicker jobs, and then it wasn't until I was about 18, 19, just doing laboring, very important jobs, But for me, I seen all the people around me, these guys who were in their, 40s and 50s, and they were complaining about their life. They were miserable. They were unhappy. They were, blaming the government. They were blaming, the workforce. They were blaming everything outside of them. And I was like, geez, like, I don't want to, I was only like, 16, 17, 18. And I was like, I can't see myself doing this for the next 40, years until I so-called retire. And I was like, I need to find a way out and look for a solution. So, and it kind of stemmed from when I was younger, like seeing my parents fight. I didn't want that in my future. And I noticed that when I was fighting at school, I was living out their same patterns. I was living out those same behaviors. And I caught myself at 14 going, holy shit, I'm turning out just like my parents. I need to stop this. And so by the time I got into the workforce at about 18, 19, I kind of, on the mines, I had a lot of heated confrontations, and I just went into my shell. And that's when I started letting people walk all over me, and I started letting people, and I became, the kid again who was getting picked on, or repeating the same cycle. And I wouldn't speak up for myself. And it was about this time that I had, I had been working on the mines for about 3 or 4 years. I was 22, and I nearly fell 30 meters to my death off the top of this structure on a platform. And I was fortunate that these two tradies, basically they helped me back onto this structure, and it was like this grim, dead silence. of like this could have ended catastrophically. You know, I was hanging over this edge, and I just started thinking like, what if I was in a box? What if I never see my family again? You know, what if I didn't do anything meaningful or purposeful with my life? And from here, I actually went back to my room. I was working on the mines. It was I was doing night shifts, so I was come back in the morning, went to sleep for 3 hours, and got woken up by the cleaners next door. And they're like, I was like, "Excuse me, ladies, can you keep it down?" They're like, "Oh, sorry, we didn't mean to wake you." And then I just couldn't get back to sleep, and I was tossing and turning and trying to just will myself back to sleep. And I remember looking at my phone. It was like 5 hours until my alarm went off. It's like, shit, I've got to get back to sleep. And I just laid there, and I just started breathing as deeply as I could into my diaphragm and out as much as I could, like really forcing it in and forcing it out. And I just remember, the whole count sheep to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I was doing that with the breath, and I was like, I'll just get to 100 straight, where I don't, if my mind wanders, I'll start from 0 again, try and get to 100. And before I knew it was like 5 minutes had passed, but it was 5 hours and my alarm went off. And I just woke up with this presence, and I felt this sense of like, I could feel like when I was putting my boots on, I could feel my feet hitting the ground. I could feel the clothes on my skin. I could feel my lungs filling and the oxygen filling. I went into the kitchen, the dry mess of where I was of the side I was on, and I could hear the rustling of the forks. I could hear the aircon in the background. All these voices and conversations going on around me, and it was like I was taking in all this extra sensory perception. It was like my senses had expanded, and I was so present, and it wasn't overwhelming or anything. It just felt like this sense of absolute, complete presence, and there was no past or future running through my mind. My food, I could taste it more richly, and so I was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, what happens when we don't sleep?"
Yeah.
Right, and I started thinking, I'm going to write a book one day called The Man Who Didn't Sleep.
Nice.
And I just didn't feel the need to sleep. So I just ate a piece of fruit every half an hour and just drank heaps of water. And I was up on this mine site for a further 3 days before it was a shutdown. So I had 3 days before I had to leave to Perth.
Yeah.
And so just remember the relevance of the number 3. So I went to sleep for 3 hours. And then I came back to my room, got woken up, and then I was on this mine site for another 3 days. And as I'm going throughout this experience, I'm connecting with these random strangers on this job, and we'd cross paths, and I just authentically connect. Say, "Hey, how you going, man?" And it was like, the only way I can really explain it is, I would then be so intrigued by what it is that lit them up and inspired them the most. And I was going into their mind, and I was downloading that information of whatever they knew the most about and loved to talk about. And then I was then in my mind applying it to how I could use it in my own reality and in my own circumstances.
Yeah.
And it was like, we'd connect within 30 to 60 seconds. We'd be having this deep interaction and connection. And I was like, whoa, there's something going on here. Like, I'm just tapping into this, I don't know, this presence, this knowing. And it was really empowering. And then I flew back down to Perth. And as I'm on the flight, I lay back, and I get this shoot of this like rush of, must have been like some sort of neurotransmitters just flooding my brain, and I feel this like ecstatic bliss. Like I've never really done drugs or anything, but I could imagine that's what someone would feel when they do drugs. I've only smoked a little bit of, cannabis, but by this stage as well, I hadn't even drunk for 8 months, hadn't touched anything. So some people ask, was this drug induced? But it wasn't. I was probably the most fit I'd been, and so I got this, this rush, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? So it was just these series of events, and then I get back down to Perth, and I'm staying with my great grandmother at the time because she was, I didn't really get to spend much time with her. And she starts pacing up and down the hallway like she's Serbian, and she starts, mumbling stuff in Serbian, and I'm like, by this stage, I hadn't slept in about 3-4 days, and I'm like start getting paranoid. I'm like, what the hell is going on? My paranoia starts kicking in. I'm like, all these thoughts are flooding in my mind. I'm like, what if I go to sleep and I start sleepwalking and I do something? I walk out into the middle of the road, or what if I fall asleep and I get up and and I don't wake up, and like all these thoughts are just flooding my mind, and I start freaking the fuck out. And so I call my girlfriend at the time, like, you need to come pick me up. So she comes, gets me, go back to her place, and we're engaged in this like really like intense argument. Like it was literally about nothing, but for some reason it was like I was pulling her into this convoluted story that I had, and it was just like, it was fucking intense, bro. And so she's like, I kept waking up and I kept hearing like this earthquake sound, like the earth was grumbling and burning. And she's like, so I'd get up and I'd like start writing down equations and shit on paper. And I was like, writing out the formula for like life and stuff, because I was always really, really good at maths, terrible at English at school.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, Brett, it's time to go to sleep now. So I lay down and I close my eyes. And if you could imagine a kaleidoscope of every single life experience you had, and going back to the very first memory, and the very first memory of you being born into the world. So I'd see this whole kaleidoscope of my whole life. And then I went back to this very first experiences. That's as if I'd seen the light for the first time. It was like I'd just been born out of the womb, and I was remembering that. And then all of a sudden it was like I felt this feeling of complete unconditional love and like just complete freedom and liberation. And I was like, am I dead? Am I on the other side? And so I freaked out, and next thing I'm on the edge of the bed and my heart's racing. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Like, I want to go back there and I want to see what was on the other side. So I close my eyes and I see, if you've seen The Lord of the Rings, the big flaming eye.
Yeah.
That's what I seen, man. And it was like, if I could go into your body and turn up the maximum, you had dials for pleasure and pain, and I'd crank them all the way up, full ball. That's what I felt like, this excruciating numbness. And it felt like the void. So one felt like the spark of life, and one felt like the void. Heaven and hell was like this duality. And, I'm not really a horoscope dude, but I've noticed in my awareness in my life, I've always been able to notice the duality. That's what Gemini is, it's the duality. And so, if we look at the Big Bang, the very first, everything exploded in the universe into existence. There was the two forces was the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. One was matter, one was antimatter. One was energy and one was empty space. And so this was for me. And after doing all this research now, looking back, it's like, whoa, I was being shown something here. Because one was like, like I said, the spark of life, and it was this sense of like unconditional love. And then one was like the void for that to take place in, the space for that to take place in. And so from there, I'm on the edge of the bed, and then my heart's racing after seeing the big flaming eye. It looks like a big flaming vagina. and my heart's absolutely pounding out of my chest, and it's pitch black in the room. Lights are all off. My girlfriend's like, I've been keeping up her all night. She's out cold. And I'm praying to God for the first time in my life. I'm not a religious person by any means, but I'm like, please, God, show me you're real. Give me a sign. Show me here. And then it was like someone came in and flicked on the lights of the earth, and the sun was beaming through the blinds. The birds were tweeting. And I stand up and I walk towards the window, and this house, the back was like a whole reserve. It was the back of reserve. So I walk out and there's just trees, And then my eyes just roll into the back of my head and tears start streaming down my face. And you know when you cry and you got like this ugly kind of like scrunched up face?
Yeah.
Like my face was like just completely relaxed and there's just tears just streaming like Niagara Falls out of my eyes. And I was just like, felt there was no separation between my skin and the edges and the bounds of the universe. I was the trees, I was the birds, I was the sun, I was the floor, I was everything and everything was me. And it was this complete like, the only way I can describe it is this God moment where I felt connected to everything. And it was something I'll always cherish because, yeah, it completely transformed my life. And from there, my thoughts, I thought I was coming out the other side of this thing. And then I started hearing the earth, awaken on the run to earning. Everyone's like they're on the run to the journey of earning, and I hear the cars, and I see that, and it's like the earth is grumbling, it's going, and it sounds like fire is crackling, and it's like this whole global warming thing is like in my probably that's what seeded this experience, but I could hear the traffic. And whenever I've really been in tune with meditation, and I go out into the bush, if there's a road or anything around, like you can hear the stillness of nature, and then you can hear this action, this activity, like this ant nest of human beings. And so my girlfriend at the time locked me in the house. She's like, do not leave, I have work, you need to stay here. And so I go down to make some wheat bix, back when I used to eat wheat bix, been many years. But I was and then all of a sudden I started getting afraid that someone was going to come and grab me. Like paranoia, man, was really kicking in. 4 or 5 days no sleep now. And I run out into this reserve, and I get lost running in this reserve. And I'm sprinting, man, and I'm sprinting my heart out. And by the way, I was the fittest I'd ever been. I'd just tapped my longest time in 5Ks. I was running I did 17 minutes 52. I ran 5Ks, which is a decent amount for someone who's not a big runner, and wasn't really fit at school, wasn't an athletic kid at school. I really went down the health and fitness journey.
Yeah, wow.
In my mid-teens, but that's a whole nother story. And so I'm running, man, and I'm sprinting, and it's like as I'm about to give way, like another gear kicks in, and I'm running even faster and sprinting even harder. And then I just kind of collapse in this reserve, and I start laughing like crazy, man. Like, and I'm running from myself. I realized, like, what am I running from? I'm actually running from myself. And I start laughing, like, there's this in hysteric laughs, because I'm like, what the fuck am I running from? What am I doing? And so I'm like, oh, I want to go back to the house now. And I couldn't find a way out of this. It was this tiny reserve. It wasn't big by any means, but I couldn't get out. And I was trying to find a way out, and my feet were burning. It was the middle of summer, and I had no shoes on. And I just can't get out of this reserve. And I see a road, and I walk out, and it's the Reed Highway. And I've never shared this part with anyone, but I'm literally wanting to get home. I haven't drunk water. It's been a couple of hours. It's a burning hot day, and I'm just like, someone's going to help me. So I kind of just try and wave down a car, and everyone's just driving past. Like, who is this nut job? And of course I was thinking that. I don't blame them. They're like, who is this crazy motherfucker? He's got no shoes on. He's in a singlet and shorts. I'll probably look wide. And then so I'm like, oh, I see cars coming. There's a break in the traffic. So I walk out into the middle of the road, and I put my hand and make cars stop in the middle of this Reed Highway.
Jesus.
And I'm like, I walk up to one car's window, and I'm like, excuse me, can I have your help? And they just zoom, start speeding off. This one guy stopped, this trucker. He opens his doors, mate, what do you need? I said, I want to go back to my grandmother's. I haven't had water. And he's like, oh, mate, I'm going the opposite way. Sorry, I can't help you. And drove off. So I'm like, shit. I'm like, I can't, no one's helping me here. I gotta go back into the bush, come out the other side where it's a bit more of a quieter road. So I go to this other road and same thing. Cars are zooming past me. And then this one car stops and he's in a full drive and he's like, come on, jump in, mate. And he gives me a bottle of water. And I'm like trying to stay composed and, not sharing. I'm like, by this stage in this reserve, man, I was speaking to the freaking sand. I was speaking to the tadpoles in the little stream. I was having conversations with aliens, like in my mind, man. Like I was out of body.
Yeah.
There was moments where I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? I wasn't even in this reserve. I wasn't even in my body. It was like I was on a fucking massive journey that I'm still unraveling today in terms of what the fuck it meant. And so I jump in this car and he starts speaking to me. I said, oh yeah, I was just doing shutdown with FMG. And he's like, oh really? The dude, the CEO is my mate. I'm a geologist for him.
Okay, cool.
Oh, what the fuck? And so I was tripping out and I was like, there's something weird going on. And like, I just felt this, weird feeling, man. And so I jumped out. I ended up getting out. He ended up dropping me off at the shops. And I sit down and I'm like looking around. It was like I was in an alternative reality. I thought I'd crossed over into some other reality. I noticed there was like people and they were being really violent to each other. And like the conversations I was hearing, there's like this very, very aggressive. And I was just tuning into something else. And I kind of like felt like I'd lost myself and I didn't know who I was in that moment. So I get back to my grandmother's and communication had broken down. And next thing the ambulance is there. I'm in the ambulance and I'm just zonked. I'm just sitting in the ambulance on the way to Joondalup. Get to Joondalup. Next thing they've put me in emergency and I'm laying there and they've got a nurse comes in and says, all right, we're going to put you to sleep now. In this eerie voice, man. I'll never forget it. Like, obviously this was like how I was taking everything in.
Yeah. And
they were just doing their jobs. And she injected me, put me to sleep. And I woke up with all these cords hanging out. And I'm like, fuck, this doesn't seem right. It's like one of those strange movies, And I pulled out these cords and I go to stand out from behind the curtain and walk out. And there's a security guard standing outside of the curtain in the bed that I was in the emergency. He said, where do you think you're going? I said, oh, I'm going home, mate. And it was like my fucking worst nightmare was coming true in that moment because I had 5 male nurses on top of me, pulling me and wrestling me into this little white room. And I was pleading with them, why are you doing this? I haven't hurt myself. I haven't hurt anyone else. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And next thing they strap me to this bed frame and, inject me, put me to sleep. And I wake up in room 33, Joondalup psychiatric ward.
Yeah, wow.
And I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, I was there, held there against my will for 28 days. I missed my sister's wedding. And I am so grateful that my family pulled through, man. Like every single one of my family members stopped and was there to support me, and I'll never forget that. Like that is what I pulled from it. The gratitude that I got to experience from my family showing up and, being there for me and just showing me unconditional love, I will never, ever forget that. And that's something that can bring a tear to my eye, man. When I do my meditations and I think about over my life, like, what am I grateful for? And it's my family pulling through for me. And, as I was there, this stubborn side of me, like every doctor that I've seen would be like, oh, Brett, you got manic depression. I'd be like, I don't believe your labels. And then the next day they'd change the doctor out and put another dude in there. And like, oh, Brett, actually that doctor was incorrect. We think you got schizophrenia. And then I'll be like, I don't believe your fucking labels. And the next thing they'd change another doctor and be like, oh, Brett, you got bipolar disorder. And then the next day we just kept doing this, man. It was like they wanted me to believe in a label because then they'd have a customer forever. You know what I mean? And there was this part of me that's like, I ain't accepting that. That's not my label. I'm not going to wear their label.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accept that for myself. That does not define who I am. Nothing in this, no label, no word can define a human being.
Yeah.
Nothing, man. Like, that's what I'd learned from that experience, is like, we can try, we're infinite, universal, immortal spirits living a, physical existence. That's probably the closest we could get to defining what a human being is, but no one can define who we are. And, I've met people who identify with their labels so much, right? And I guess it serves a purpose, if someone's depressed and they have, like, my family, when I was in that experience, I had my family around me. I could have gone, I want my family around me like this all the time. I'm going to play the mental illness card.
Yeah.
And then I'll get all this support, all this caring. I'll be able to let loose. Oh, that's my free card to cut sick.
Yeah.
Be an absolute lunatic. It's like, yeah, I'm going to play my lunatic card, and, I've seen people that in my journey, I was learning from them. I was learning from them. Like, oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia for like the last 20 years, and this is my 8th time back here. Like, fuck, I don't want that. And these people, right, man, these people had gifts. Like this one guy, socially, you probably couldn't really socially, like, go out and, have a, socially wasn't able to show up, but in terms of who he was as a human being, you'd stare straight through your soul, man. He had these piercing blue eyes. He'd look straight through your soul. And he just had this presence about him. And he was held the Bible in his hand everywhere he went. And he'd stand out in this little patch of grass. And he's like, the storms are coming. One afternoon. And I turned to one of the older guys he was quite grounded, but he was just, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know why he was there. He must have had an episode or something. And I'm like, dude, what's this guy's story? He's like, I kid you not, 50% of the time it actually starts raining. Next thing you know, there's a sun shower, starts spitting, and the security guards run out, tackle him to the ground, and lock him in his room.
What?
And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? It was really, really bizarre, because when I showed up, I was talking about God, and I was talking about all these things, because I had this, like, when I was laying in the bed that night, I had these two visions of heaven and hell, light and dark. It felt like I went through all time and space. I was traveling through from the beginning of the Big Bang all the way through time and space. And it's like what we're going through right now on this planet, we've been here before. The same things that have happened in our history have happened. We look at our whole calendar, it's based off one dude's passing. Whether you believe in it or not, our whole calendar is based on that to this day. We map our whole every single year. And so that occurrence has happened multiple times on this planet, or in some way, shape, or form. There's been it's a cycle.
Yeah.
But we're only aware of what's happened, what we're drip fed, what information is drip fed through his story. That's why it's called, it's someone's story. It's his story. It's not our story.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, I got out of the hospital, and I was taking these tablets every day to put me to sleep. And they were trying to get me regimented. Every single person was doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'd have ones in the morning and midday, and I'd feel whacked out, man. Like, I'd do art class, and I couldn't do art. It felt like there was ants all, on my skin, and, like this weird sensations that I couldn't concentrate. And I was experiment. I was a guinea pig. They were just like, all right, we'll try this one. Oh, that one doesn't work. We'll try the next one. Oh, that one doesn't work. And trying to get people to basically sedate them so they could go back out, numb them out, so they could go back out into the real zombie world, which was the outside world. When we were in there, we were all like, we knew something. It's like every single person knew that there was something going on in this system. And then out there was where the real crazy people were, and the real fucking shit was going down. And if you look at it, look at the world, like there's a lot of madness going on out there that, is kind of now it's normal. We've been socially engineered to what's acceptable and what's not, what's right and what's wrong. And so when you go through an experience like that, you realize you push the boundaries of what's socially acceptable, what's socially normal. And the number one reason I said, why am I locked up in here? Oh, we wouldn't want you to do anything that could damage your own reputation. That was the only reason they had. And so I met a particular doctor, and he said to me, Brett, he'd been the most experienced there, done 40 plus years, all these extra credentials. And he said, Brett, I've only ever seen this one time in my career, but it was in, earlier in his career. And he said, it's called a transient phenomena, right? And he said the other person that had this experience, so you know how I said that blissful experience in the plane, like this euphoric thing? He said the other person, how's this for the law of balance? The other person had that same experience, but he was diving underwater.
He was diving underwater at the time he was having the experience?
Diving.
Yeah, okay.
Scuba diving, once he had that rush, that hit, which is what I had on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of altitude, So I was like, it was really, really quite bizarre to hear that. And at the time, I didn't realize, but my mum told me that I was saying, Mum, don't get on the plane. She does FIFO as well. Yeah. She's a safety officer. I was like, Mum, don't get on the plane. Don't get on the plane. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? My son's going fucking absolutely nuts. Put her through so much. I couldn't imagine the strength she had to summon to go through all that. And I said to her, don't get on the plane, don't get on the plane. And the next thing you know, MH13 goes missing.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, around the same time, like it was the same week that had happened, and I was saying these things. That was the same occurrence that MH13 went completely missing.
Yeah. That was that Malaysia Airlines flight, right?
Yeah, the Malaysian Airlines flight. Yeah. And in my head, I was like, what if this, there's a reality where I didn't go nuts and MH13 landed on the tarmac. Like, who knows how powerful a human being is. We had a conversation before. It was like this, there could be 7 billion multiverses out there, and we're all living where, the center of the universe is actually the human mind.
Yeah.
And what if we've created this whole setup to be born into and evolve through what we've meant to evolve through?
Yeah. Man, that is one absolute hell of a story, man. Like, phenomenal. Like, I'm trying to put the pieces together in my own head of how I understand it. Like, do you think that, obviously as human beings we're brought up from a very, very young age, and it's all relative to where we're brought up, whether like someone in Australia is going to be brought up very differently from someone in India and someone in South America. They're all going to have different belief systems, but from a very young age we're given all this information of like, this is who you are, this is where you come from, and you sort of build this identity around who you are, and then this becomes the way that you live your life. And so you go throughout life, these things happen to you, and for most people, it's, you kind of start to hit the boundary, you start to feel anxious, you start to, get all these feelings, but we're taught, from a young age, not to really embrace these feelings and not to run away from them. But, I can't speak for women, but as men, we're told not to try and feel these emotions. We've got to pack them down because, if you get too emotional about stuff, then you're not a real man, so to speak. So I guess like where I'm trying to go with this is like, it's not the first time I've heard a lot of the stuff that you've said. Like I've never heard a story like that before, but I've heard little bits and bats from reading I've done over the years. And it sounds like from that point, you've gone through this existence, you've got this belief system, you're going on this timeline, this up, this down, following the same patterns. And then all of a sudden you've had this massive stressful event which is the falling off this platform in FIFO. And it's just pushed the levels, pushed the boundaries of, you know, your identity and who you thought you are so far that something's cracked. It's cracked in a way that's brought your that fight or flight response that you were talking about. It's pushed it so hard that it's really like it's put you on complete edge to the point where you can't sleep. Am I sort of on the right point?
Yeah, well, what they said it was is PSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and then I experienced a psychotic episode. Now,
okay.
I was speaking to, so as I was speaking to these two particular, the doc that I spoke to, told you about the transient phenomena.
Yeah.
And he had a student with him, and me and him had a one-on-one chat, and he was really being real with me. These two guys, for the first time, they treated me like an actual human being.
Yeah.
And like, by the way, like if you don't go to sleep and take your meds when they say, and you spit out your meds, they pin you down and jab you in the ass. They'll have 5, 6 dude. Like there was a massive nurse who come and pinned me down multiple times with all of them. And I'm screaming at them like, how could you do this to another human being? Like they were just doing their job. They're doing what they thought was right, you know. And I don't have any, you know, at the time I was fuming. But, you know, I don't have any harsh feelings toward them because they're just doing what they thought was sincere and, you know, genuine in their heart to help another human being. And that's just the training they went through. And that's just the system that we have at this current stage. And so there's a few pieces that I just want to share about that story. So speaking to the student, he said, like, since this has gone on, like, I've done some soul searching. I was like, whoa, that sounds pretty cool. Like, just from our conversations, you know. And he started to question things as well. And then I said to him, like, it was like my senses expanded, right? And they're like, you know, you had hallucinations and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, it felt like my senses expanded though. And he's like, yeah, it's a common thing in psychosis. People say that they can, they can either hear things or see things or smell things or taste things more vividly. And I was like, what if it's not an imagination, like part of their hallucination, or it's actually happening within the brain? You know, like what if something's opened up and expanded in there? And there was also another piece come to me that, so after doing a lot of research and everything around near-death experiences, it's the same thing. Like, you know, they see the tunnel, they go to the white light, they might see some family members in the afterlife. You know, this could be part of the human archetypes as well. You know what I mean? Like that whole, you know, it's part of our blueprint. You know, that as a human being, that we have these same kind of stories and these same kind of experiences. And so through my research, what I now know is that event activated, you know, the near-death experiences activated a molecule called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, which Dr. Rick Strassman is the only scientist to study in a clinical setting. I'm not sure, this was a couple of years ago that I was doing his research, so it might have changed, but up until 2017, he'd been the only clinical studies on dimethyltryptamine. And it's only activated naturally within the body 4 times: when we're having a near-death experience, when we die, when we're born, and when the mother's giving birth. So I had this near-death experience, and so that is released from a gland in the brain called the pineal gland, right? And it's the only part of the brain that doesn't have a hemisphere. So every single part of the brain has 2. Two sides, the left and right hemispheres. The prefrontal cortex has 2 lobes. Every single part of the brain, the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, everything except for the pineal gland, which is about a pea size of a pea. And so interesting that he called it the spirit. Dr. Nick Strassman's called it the spirit molecule, Rene Descartes, he was a philosopher and a mathematician of the 1500s. His student was Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton's his discoveries on light and physics is the reason why we have the civilization we have today. All mechanics, all engineering is based on Newtonian physics.
Yeah.
Right. So who he got a lot of his information on in terms of mathematics was Rene Descartes. He was the guy who said, "I think, therefore I am."
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And so he called the pineal gland the seat of the soul. Right. So interesting that when we die, when we have a near-death experience, when we're born, DMT is activated. The spirit molecule comes in and through out of the pineal gland. Now we know that if they've done research where they put someone on a scale, and when they've passed, they've realized that they go lighter, and the soul weighs 28 grams.
Yeah, wow.
28 grams. You can look it up online. They've done research where they've seen that the body gets lighter when they literally are dead. And so as I was going throughout my, when I first got out of the hospital, I was having these pills like every night, and I was sleeping about 16 hours a day. They told me I was going to be on the rest of my life. Some of them said at least 2 years minimum. And I was only, and I was digging this hole, man. I was like, cut myself off from the world. My family, oh, Brett's out now. He's all good. Let's go back to our lives.
Yeah.
And I was just in my cave, and I was like, just didn't know how to ask for help. Didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to do. Didn't want to tell them that I was struggling in case I got thrown back in the fucking loony bin.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I got to do something. And so I started weaning myself off. So I went from 2 tablets, and I only needed it for at night, because I ended up convincing the doctors, like, I'm here because I didn't sleep. I don't need to be having the ones at breakfast and the ones at lunch. And, some of them would try and force me to do it. But then I go, oh, no, doctor said so. And I was like, oh, cool. So I was only having it at night, and I went from 2, then I went to 1.5, then 1, then half, then a quarter. And then any time I woke up in the middle of the night after falling asleep in this, oh, fuck, I've got to get to sleep. What if I don't? I'd go and have the rest of what I would normally have, what I was up to. That. And within about 4 to 6 weeks, I'd completely weaned myself off all of it. And I started getting into meditation, because I was like, oh, this is going to help me sleep. And this was in probably halfway through the year in 2014. And I remember my very first meditation experience was like transcendental. I am, you're just sitting there and you're saying, I am. I am. And I was like, my eyes rolled in the back of my head, and I was like, thought I was levitating. I was like, whoa, this shit's cool, man. I love this. And I was hooked instantly. And so weaned myself off these meds, and I started studying Buddhism. And I read the story and the fable about the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he sits under there for 40 days and 40 nights meditating. And he went to all these different layers of reality, and these different heavens, as the Hindus would call it, or the Buddhists, these different dharmas. I can't remember what they actually call them. It's been a while since I've reviewed that info, but one thing that stood out for me was he said the soul reincarnates on the 49th day. That's all I remember, right?
Okay.
And then as I was going through and started studying the brain and neurology, I read that the pineal gland is formed 49 days after the point of conception.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, whoa, isn't that interesting? And 49 is the square root of 7. Was it the other way?
7 is 49.
Yes, 7 is the square root of 49.
Yeah.
And there's 7 major hormonal centers in the body, or what they call chakras in Hinduism and that belief system.
Yeah.
And there's 7 major energy centers, that govern all human emotion, all human. If we're hungry, our gastric hormonal center will be activated and we'll go move and we'll go eat.
Mm.
You know, our adrenal glands, if we're in fight or flight, will be producing cortisol, adrenaline, and that's where aggression and power and dominance comes into play. Then we've got, like, you know, our sexual glands. That's when, you know, if you have a sexual thought, you know, that's where, you know, we all know what that's like when that gets activated.
Yeah.
So those centers we actually share with all species in the animal kingdom. Those free hormonal centers. As human beings, we also have our heart, right, which allows us to open and connect to other human beings and love. And then we have this center which allows us to express our truth. Then we have the, you know, pineal gland in there as well. And then we've got the pituitary gland. So this, which is the master gland of all of them, that governs all of them. And so, you know, 7 days in a week. There's 7 colors on this light spectrum. There's 7 octaves in the musical, you know, note language. And so, musical alphabet, it's called.
I'm not sure what it's called.
I'll play guitar, but I'm not a classical.
We'll go with musical alphabet. I like it.
I'm not a classically learned muso. I can't remember. But yeah, that all these things, you know, throughout 3 and 7 are these sacred numbers. And, you know, if you look at into like the Fibonacci sequence in the golden ratio, you know, if you know, if you times this part of your finger by 1.16, you get that. You times that by 1.16, you get that. You get this part, you times that by 1.16, you get that. And it continues to go on. That by 1.16, you get this, and so forth. It's like through the whole body. Our ear shares the same structures as the inside of a shell.
Yeah.
Right? And this happens throughout nature. When they figured this out, they thought they'd figured out the secrets to the universe, you know? It was like, oh my God, we found, you know, secret to God or creation. Yeah. Now, also one thing I want to touch on, my perception, you know, when you think about people say God, you know, they immediately think of some sort of religious belief where it's some dude's in the cloud and he's like, you've been a bad boy. You're going to get punished and smacked and go down to hell if you do wrong. You know, and it was like, I think the, you know, the power structures at the time knew the power of, you know, the authority of mummy and daddy when we're born into the world, and they played that same power structure out with adults in terms of if you do something wrong in this life, you're going to be punished in the afterlife. Yeah. So they could then control human behavior, and it was very important as well because we went from, you know, tribalization, you know, and we're quite brutal as human beings, you know. And then we kind of had these morals and ethics, and it was a very important part of our evolution. But I think it was Ricky Gervais said it. He said, like, if you had science and you had religion and the whole world is restarted, science would stay the same, but the religion would be different. You know, and so when I talk about God, it's related to the Vedic texts, which they talk about. You know, if you look in Hinduism, they have the builder, maintainer, destroyer, the 3 gods. Yeah. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and they were the 3 gods. It was this triangle: build, maintain, destroy, and it happens within nature. If you look at our seasons, the way trees grow, if you look at anything in nature, we do this within our life. We do this in our relationships as well. Would you agree, in your relationship, there's times where you're building your relationship and you come really close? Yeah. And then there's a time where you kind of get comfortable and you're kind of just coasting and everything's going really smoothly, but there's no highs or lows. It's just everything's going really good. Yeah. And then you go, fuck, something bad's about to happen where this is going too smoothly. And then you have a point where you destroy your relationship or destroy a part of your relationship so you can rebuild it again and get closer and evolve. And that's an essential piece of the puzzle. But as human beings, we've been kind of conditioned to get so attached to just it being always positive, you know? And we do this within our bank account. You know, we'll build our finances and we'll build our savings up. And then we'll kind of get to a point, it's like, oh yeah, I finally got the amount that I want. And we'll plateau. And then what will happen? Car will break down. The fridge breaks down. Something where we've got to pay out a big bill, and we destroy our savings again. And we get to the lowest point and we're like, fuck, I haven't had my savings this low in a long time. I need to build it back up again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we'll go through the build, maintain, destroy as well in our finances. We do it with our health. Health is a perfect example. I've witnessed this quite early in my health journey where, I would get right into my fitness. I'm like, I need to do something. I've been fucking eating, chocolate and ice cream before bed every night. I need to fucking step my game up, start running, eating healthy. I build my health and my wellness and my vitality. And I get to this point where I'm like, wow, I've never been this fit before and this shredded. I'm going to go out and have a beer with the boys.
Yeah.
And then you miss a day of training. And then you miss a week of training and you start, and you plateau, and then you start destroying your health again. And you get to the low point and you're like, shit, I'm over. This is the heaviest I've been or the most out of shape I've been in ages. I need to start building my, my fitness back up. And we do the same thing in our fitness.
Yeah.
But we're so attached to it being plus. Like, if you look at the world we live in, Joey, if you ask 9 out of 10 people on the street, what is it that you want most out of life? Can you guess what they would say?
Probably success.
I like your answer because it reflects where we're at, success and failure is, in entrepreneurship, we get caught up in, success and failure go hand in hand. Like the more you fail on your journey, the faster you will achieve success. Yeah. It's like if you fail once a year, you're probably not going to have that much success, But, we go through school and we want to just get, we're actually conditioned to only succeed. So if there's a chance we might fail at something, in our later life, we don't go for it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've failed many times in your entrepreneur journey.
Many times.
And it's like, there's a part of you like, I need to fail faster. I need to fail forward. I need to fail more and grow because it's like it's hands-on learning,
Yeah.
And you could read all the books in the world, but if you're not, making mistakes, you're not getting feedback from your environment to grow. And so I've actually asked this with my family and a lot of friends, and the most answer that I get is, I just want to be happy.
Yeah. That was going to be my second answer, funnily enough. I don't know why success just came first. So I just thought, I'll just say success.
And so, I like to look at it like this, man. And I was caught up in this game as well. Happiness is the crack of the masses. Because, why do I say that? Since the whole positive thinking movement came about in the 70s, I can't remember the guy who wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. It was like a really, really hit success.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Domenico Rowland, I think it was, maybe.
Okay. I heard of the book. I don't really know the author.
Can't remember the author's name. But he actually came out and said, this positive thinking stuff doesn't work. He came out on stage and he said, I've lost my wife, I've lost my home, I've lost my kids, I've lost everything. Because this is what I was doing at one stage in my life. I was so addicted to the happiness that I had this illusion that I was going to be rich and successful and famous and all these things, but I wasn't actually taking any action in my life and burying my head in the sands regarding my finances, burying my head in the sand regarding to my relationships, putting on this front that everything was perfect in my world, but inside I was in turmoil. And we've kind of been conditioned to do this. Like, what's the name of the meal for kids at the largest, most successful takeaway?
It's a Happy Meal.
Exactly right. And it's like that ain't done by accident.
Yeah.
And so, so we get this, and this is what. So let's go into this even deeper. This is the cause of depression. We know that you can't have depression without elation. Just like you can't have happiness without sadness. The only reason you know what happiness feels like is because we've experienced sadness.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, Joey, here's a button and you can press this button and you'll be happy from when you show up here to when you leave, right? And you pressed it. Would you press it?
Not knowing what I know, I probably would not press it. No, but I can see that at a stage in my life, I would have definitely pressed it. 100%.
Like most people, right? I mean, we would have been bullish. But then how would you know? How would you know that you're happy if you had nothing to compare it with and you were just the whole time through just smiling?
Yeah, it would just be normal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you'd just be completely, it wouldn't even exist. Like, how could that, you know what I'm saying? Like, the contrast is what gives us the understanding. And so we're so addicted to the elated feelings, like, I should always be happy, I should always be this, that when we experience the opposite, build, maintain, and then we, the emotions that we perceive destroy us, we beat ourselves up. I shouldn't be upset. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be happy. Like everyone else is, look at everyone on my Instagram feed. They look smiling and happy. And so if we look at depression, I had this conversation with my brother. My brother said to me, bro, I've been facing the bit of the black dog. I'm like, what's that? It's like, depression is like what like he's in construction, so it's what the, when you're tough, you call it the black dog. You don't say you have depression. And I was like, really? And I said, tell me more about it. And so we started talking about it. I said, bro, got to remember, it's just a label. 20 years ago, no one had depression and anxiety. People were just sad and stressed.
Yeah. And
now you're sad and stressed. We put a clinical diagnosis on it, and now you can be sold a tablet, antidepressant, anti-anxiety tablet. And so my other brother, who was also listening in on the conversation, he's experienced depression and he's been on the antidepressants and stuff. So he's bought into it.
Yeah.
Not that they're not right or wrong. They serve a purpose. Like, I don't want to get anyone's idea that I'm telling you, don't do this and don't do that and be this and don't do this. I'm just sharing my experience and my understanding. And I don't really believe in the idea of telling people what they should do, like giving them information, giving them sharing experiences so they can make a choice on their own,
Yeah.
And so my other brother was like, how dare you say it's not a label? It's a real thing, like that. And he started, it was like his identity was so caught up in it that he felt like, I need to defend it because the ego doesn't know whether it's a physical attack or a mental attack.
Yeah.
This is why when we get into arguments, you'll be having a conversation about an idea and people will be in fight or flight as if their life's being threatened.
Yeah.
They're activating those same primitive systems. And so he starts, cutting sick at me. I said, whoa, just calm down. Like, let's have a look at this. I said, bro, so you can't have depression without elation. It's polar opposite. So whenever we have a thought in our conscious mind, we also have an anti-thought in our subconscious mind, the opposing thought. So when I say blue and you see the image blue in your mind, the anti-thought would be red. If someone's saying to you, Joey, I just want to be happy, I just want to feel fulfilled, I just want to feel loved, the anti-thought is they're sad, they're unfulfilled, and they feel unloved.
Yeah.
Right? And so I said to my brother, so where is this, this elation? Where is there a fantasy or somewhere in your life where you have this unrealistic expectation that you're not meeting? And he goes, you know what? Every week I buy the lotto ticket. I come home after work and I bring the lotto ticket with me and I sit down with my wife and we talk about what we're going to spend the earnings on, the winnings on. And I'm like, I bet you wake up the next day feeling pretty depressed when it doesn't come through. He's like, you know what? And it was true, man. And he would feel depressed he's like, another week of hell. Another week of doing something that I don't love. Another week of busting my ass, making someone else's dreams come true.
Yeah.
And, and struggling to put food on the table to feed his wife and his kids, and that's most people's reality these days. And like, I don't know about you, but when I was back, 17, 18 years old and seeing everyone else around that, I was like, I need to find someone who's fucking found a way out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I need to find someone who's like, they've found a way to escape that, that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And so this actually happened in my own life, Joey. It was around the time we met and we were in this business coaching program together. And it was like, make all this money and, do all this, be fucking rich, be a millionaire. Like, I was like 22, 23 at the time. I'm like, I'm jumped into my first ever online business coaching program. And I was like, this is awesome. And it was all just hype. And then you get to go to do the work. I completely take responsibility. The information was gold. There's people in there who were making millions of dollars. They were crushing it. So I was like, but what they didn't teach you is how to get clear on what it is you're actually here to do. What pulls you forward? What are you spontaneously inspired to do that no one needs to remind you of?
Yeah.
Your purpose, right? Because our purpose is always present and it drives every single action we've ever taken in our lives. But it's our perception that we don't have it figured out. We don't know what it is. And we cloud the clarity of our purpose and our vision from the noises on the outside. But when you're clear with the voice on the inside, you become, when you become inwardly fluent, you become outwardly influential. But when you're inwardly lost, you're outwardly influenced.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what I was. I was inwardly lost and I became outwardly influenced. And so I jumped into this program. And I wasn't taking any action. They're like, just take more action. Just, do the Tony Robbins dance and, fist pump the air. and then go and just take more action.
Yeah.
And what I was doing, it wasn't truly aligned to my heart and soul. I was just following the trend,
Yeah.
I was just following a trend. Oh, what's they're doing on their marketing? Oh, I should do it like them. Oh, what about their marketing? Oh, I should do it like them. And so I was caught up in this game of like trying to inject other people's purpose into mine, thinking that was what's going to fulfill me. Does that make sense?
That makes heaps of sense, man, because I think being in that program with you, it can completely relate to exactly the way you were feeling. Exactly. Like the way you described it, I was almost in an identical place as you. It's like not feeling complete on the inside, feeling there's something more, not really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment in time, feeling pretty shitty about it. And then all of a sudden this opportunity comes up and it's like, you can be a millionaire. And it's like, fuck, I want to be a millionaire. Who doesn't want to be a millionaire? And then you go in and there is the like, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of energy and a lot of beautiful people. And while you were together in that unit, you were all vibing. You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is so cool. This is awesome. We're learning. I'm transforming. This is great. But yeah, as soon as you left by yourself to your own devices and that external energy disappears, it's just like, so I've got to do a fucking Facebook post today. Okay. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, exactly right. And then you're like, as soon as you're on the other side of your laptop and you're not on the friggin' coaching call and it's just you and you're lost inwardly, like you got no fucking chance.
Yeah.
Because you just, you like you said, you're vibing off everyone else's and you're like, I can do anything. And then you get back on the other side and it's just you against the world again. No one can come and save you. No one can come and help you. But you're like, in those states, we're looking for someone to save us. Yeah. We're looking to be saved. We're looking to be led instead of being a leader from within. Because when you become a leader from within, Joey, what I'd learned was that then you can feel congruent to lead other people. You're not having to pretend. You're not having to show up and put on a mask and go, oh, look how everything is so awesome and amazing in my life. You know what I mean? It's like you feel like, I'm a human. I can fuck up. I can make mistakes. I face challenges, but I also grow from them. Like, this is what I've learned, and so there was a piece that I just wanted to quickly touch on. So at this stage, when we around the time we met, I sat down and I was learning about how, human perception and human awareness. and how our perceptions shape our reality. And this feeling I was feeling, so-called, depressed, that I wasn't taking action in this coaching business. I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't doing, and I was beating myself up hard, man. Like, so when we have an unrealistic expectation that we put it on, we put this ideal on a pedestal, we beat ourselves up, we'll ridicule ourselves, we'll slam ourselves, we'll push ourselves into the ground, and we diminish our self-worth every time we do that. We diminish our self-trust, our self-love. We just completely start to diminish it more and more and more. And this is what I was caught in, man. And I went and I sat down and I said, what fantasy?
Keep going. Sorry, man.
What fantasy am I comparing my life to? And I seen me in a suit on a red Ferrari with all these babes around me. And that was the image in my subconscious mind. And I was like, holy shit. So I wrote that on a piece of paper, and then I wrote down the life that I was living now. And I was literally sitting in my, my friggin' 2001 blue Magna, Mitsubishi Magna. And I was wearing my red, I worked at a YMCA, it was a red uniform. So I had my red shirt on, and I didn't have any babes around me, but I was sitting, and I pulled up at Les Moody Falls in Perth, WA, in the car park. And I got out this piece of paper, and I just wrote on the other side, I was like, my life now. And I started to write out what would be the drawbacks or the negatives to living that life with the Ferrari and the babes. And then I started to write, what are the benefits? What are the positives of me living this life? And I started to go, write 20 answers for each. And then I'd switch back and forth. Every 20 answers, I'd switch back and forth. And until I got to a place where my heart cracked open and I became grateful for the life that I was living, and a tear streamed down my cheek.
That's beautiful, man.
And I was like, and when we do that, what physically happens in the brain and the body was we're in the state of homeostasis. So we're neither dominated by the fight or flight response or dominated by the parasympathetic response, which we can do as well. I was hooked on trying to stay comfort and trying to chase ease, which is all those, you got all those dopamine and oxytocin and estrogen. Those are all those ones that's wanting to stay small and take the easy road. I don't want to go into fight or flight. I just want to stay in this rest and digest state, so we can be swayed by both. So, we've been talking a lot about fight and flight, but there's also the other end of the spectrum. We can be hard in that, which also has different results in different imbalances and different symptomology in the body.
Yeah.
Which is quite fascinating. So I got to that place. I knew that I had to get to that place where I was in complete presence, complete love, complete, certainty that everything I was exactly in the place that I needed to be. And I knew that I had to get to that point where a tear, came down my cheek, because then I knew that I'd cleared that whole fucking story.
Yeah.
And, I started listing out, I had to list out I had to get creative with it. I had to go, if I was there, people would be wanting handouts. I wouldn't know who was real and who was fake. I had to go, I could be liable for getting sued, I'd have bigger bills. I'd have to pay bigger tax, I'd have to manage more people, all these things, I'd be more stressed. I'd be more,
Yeah.
And so I got to this point where I realized, I'd been beating myself up and living a fantasy, and I wasn't living congruently with the life that I was leading, and then being grateful for the life that I was currently in. If anyone's listening to this right now, you've got the gift of hearing. There's people in the world who can't hear anything. They could never hear music again. There's people in the world who can't ever see, have never seen, or maybe have lost sight, and they'll never get to see again. People in the world who are walking around feeling shit about their lives, but there's people who are wheeling themselves around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We forget that. We take so many of these things for granted, Joey. And, I'm guilty of doing it as well. I'm not a fucking saint or an angel, but sometimes you got to check yourself, and you got to check, You got to count your blessings. What are you grateful for? You know, it's something I practice every morning and every night. I go through, what am I grateful for? You know,
I was listening to Matthew McConaughey's book this morning. If you've not listened to it, man, or if you've not read it, it is freaking awesome. That guy is beautiful. I think I've got a slight man crush on his voice, which is pretty cool. But on that point, man, it was he was saying that, you know, he going through his childhood, he was complaining because he had these shitty sneakers, and his mum used to say to him, "Look, just be grateful. You know, be grateful for what you've got. There's people out there that got nothing, you know." And he just like, oh yeah, whatever. But then he really had a go at her one day, so she ended up taking him to see a boy that had no feet. And it was only then he really realized the real value of what he had, because he'd seen like he's got, you know, he's got feet and he's got shoes to protect those feet, and this poor little kid's got no feet at all.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah,
puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Fucking A, it does, man. Really, really does.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Carry on. I was just
no, I love that
a little bit of insight there.
That's a slap in the face, isn't it? It's like, oh damn. Like, I'm going to wait for his mum's like, I'm going to wait for the day. You know, and then I'm going to show him what for.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. You know, it's not until you really see it, like. We hear so many things, and we see so many fake realities on Facebook and social media and all these different things that we pay attention to day to day, that we don't really get the realization until we see, feel, or touch, you know, these things firsthand and see it like with your own eyes, as opposed to from screens and things. And it's a massive shock, man. Like, you know, going to what you said, I went to, I spent a little bit of time in India when I was on my travels, and going through Mumbai, man, you've never seen two sides of a street with such opposing diversity. It was unfucking believable, man. Wow. Like, you've got one side of the street is beautiful, beautiful architecture, like absolutely exquisite buildings, people walking around that are obviously, they have money, they have wealth, and you know, you feel very comfortable walking on this side of the street. And then on the opposite side of the street, you've got a railway line where there's literally, if you just glance at it, it's just a fence with blankets. Looks like there's blankets thrown over this fence. But then it's not until you like really stop and pay attention that you've got these families that are living underneath these blankets. And I'm not just talking about one or two people, man. I'm talking about families with 6 kids living underneath a sheet. No. And I got told a real horrible story while I was there, that because these families are so poor and so deprived of, you know, basic human, what we take for granted in the Western world, they go around and they break the kids' bones and they chop off limbs. Yeah, they maim them so that when people like, you know, travelers and things like that come, they can sit on the side of the street and invoke compassion to get money. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's one of the things is like when, you know, paying to educate as opposed to pay, you know, by paying those kids, you're supporting it. You know, you're encouraging that to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's and like, yeah, it's pretty surreal, man. Like I've heard some stories. I've never been to India, but I've heard similar stories, man. Like where, you know, and I've seen it in Thailand. There's this dude and he had a cup and he had one arm, he had a nub on his elbow and like no legs. And he was crawling with this cup in his hand, just put the cup in front of him, then he'd pull himself along the ground, put the, you know, cup and pull himself along the ground. You know, I was about 16, 17, 18, and I gave him some cash, but like part of me was like, you know, it's because I was like you know, it was so hard to see this dude. I was like, I just need to do my bit and then I need to get out of here, because like it was so hard to see that happening, you know. And like that was a big wake up call going into third world countries. Like these people have nothing and they're smiling, they're grateful, and they've, you know, and it's kind of been, I guess, programmed into us to, you know, to constantly seek, you know, I call it the disease of more. Is like we think that when we get the car, then we'll feel fulfilled. When we get the house, then we'll feel happy. When we get the partner, then we can feel loved. When we, get the success or the promotion, then we'll feel, like we've achieved. But like, that's like waiting for something outside of you, giving your power away and waiting for something outside of you to fulfill you, when you can actually go in and start to feel fulfilled what you have right now. You can actually go in and start to feel love for who you are now. You can go inside and start to feel achieved for what you've got in your life right now.
Yeah.
And from there, what's happening in terms of quantum physics, right? So we have electromagnetic frequency around us that goes to about 6 feet. That you can, with particular imagery and photographic imagery, they can see the electromagnetic field around a human being. An example of this is, when you walk up to an antenna when you're young, and you don't even have to touch it it's crackly, and you go and you get close to it, and then all of a sudden it works.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's working. And you go sit back and it goes fuzzy, and then you realize, and you touch it, and then your frequency is affecting the antenna, right? And so we have in our brain and our body what are called glial cells, and glial cells are the glue, right, that hold together the rest of the brain. They outnumber neurons 10-1.
Yeah, wow.
Right, and these glial cells have what are called morphogenic fields around them, and these fields, just like there's a morphogenic field around the sperm and the egg when it comes together, and that morphogenic field is like kind of like the blueprint of creation, and then those cells divide mitotically. It goes from the zygote, which is a single cell, the very first cell of the human being, and then it goes into 2, and then it goes into 4, and then it goes into 8, and it goes into this like tetrahedron kind of shape. And then and then it starts multiplying, and cells start to specialize, and then you've got liver cells, heart cells, lung cells. The heart actually forms before the nervous system. Funny enough. And so this is within our body as well. So when we are, whatever emotion we are resonating at, right? So when you have an emotion, a thought, say you have a happy thought or a sad thought, right? You create a neural pathway in your brain, and you activate that neural network related to the feeling of, let's say, sadness. And then all of a sudden, you get neural peptides sending signals to the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, which then produces down into the hormonal system. It will then activate different hormonal centers. So if you're having a sexual thought, the hormonal center is going to be pretty obvious which one that's going to activate. For example's sake, or if you're having a sad thought, you might activate the thymus gland, which is in the heart, and you're then producing these chemical compounds, which is actually changing the biochemistry in your body. Now, if we break down the human form, we've got systems, organs, tissues, molecules. Then we've got atoms and subatomic particles. All energy is 99.999% space. Like, if we break down the atom, like it's 99.9% space. Like it's like putting a Malteser in the middle of the MCG or a footy field.
Yeah.
And then having another Malteser zip around the outside of that whole, that whole arena.
Yeah.
Like that is what every single atom is like. To put it in perspective. And so our emotions then created a vibration or an energetic frequency. Have you ever been like when you go to meet someone's feeling down and you're feeling up, and then all of a sudden you start speaking to them and you start feeling down?
Yeah.
And you start feeling like shit.
Yeah.
You're like, and you get off the phone to that person, you're like, damn, I'm not calling them back.
Yeah, been there, man.
Yeah, and sometimes we want, and sometimes in the coaching space as well, when we start learning this stuff, you're like, oh, I really want to help this person. But then you'll get into, they might go, nah, and they want to stay in that. And then there's like this tension. And this happened in the early days for me when I was with family. I was like, yeah, I learned all this cool stuff. I'm like, and you kind of say, what you're learning, and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I want to stay pissed off. I want to
Yeah.
stay in this emotional, story, and and because again, it threatens their identity. And so, coming back to how how we create our energy based upon the emotions we feel, is then our glial cells vibrate and resonate with the emotions that we generate. So if, for instance, if you look at your home or your office space in particular, there's nothing in that office space where you'd open a drawer and be like surprised by an object and go, oh, wow, how did that get there? Like everything that got in that space existed as a thought in your mind before it was coming to your reality.
Yeah.
So you could say then that the vibrational energy that you were thinking and feeling at those times when you were like, I want to put this in there, I want to put that in there, you were resonating beyond time and space with that particular thing until you brought it into your present reality. And that's happening in the future now. The things you are resonating with now on an emotional level, you're drawing into your reality, through that electromagnetic field. We're resonating to what we're thinking about and feeling about, we bring about. Right? And so, that's why we could think all day long, oh, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a millionaire. But if we don't feel in our body that we're not enough, that we don't deserve it, we haven't got the intelligence, we haven't got we're not smart enough, we haven't got the resources or the skills or whatever that, whatever we feel on a subconscious level, there's nothing we can do to go and achieve that goal. Like there's nothing that, is going to change until we start to build that self-worth, the self-love and self-appreciation within us. And like having a strong reason, you look at like, say, someone like Elon Musk who wants to get to Mars, whether his intentions are pure or not, I don't know. Like, there's all the whole, there's the whole
the conspiracy behind it.
Yeah, the whole conspiracy on either side, and I'm open to everything, but I question. I'm open to anything, but I question everything.
Yeah.
And so someone like that, for instance, like they have a big reason to acquire wealth, so they can go and build this shit to go, to Mars.
Yeah. And
so it's the same with every human beings as well. Like I like to look at it like this: if you want to have an impact, like a human being will never outgrow their vision. So what I mean by that is, if you want to have an impact in your life, have a vision as big as your family. If you want to have an impact in your family, you've got to have a vision that's as big as your community. If you want an impact in your community, you've got to have a vision that's as big as your city. If you want to have an impact that's as big as your city, you could have a vision that's as big as your state. If you want to have an impact as big as your state, you could have a vision that's as big as your country. If you want to have an impact in your country, you've got to have a vision that's as big as the world. And if you want to have a global impact, you have to have a celestial, astronomical, universal vision that outlives your life, an immortal vision.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day as well, like, when I first got out of hospital and I started really questioning like that whole experience, and I come across an article, it was like a shaman's walking through a psychiatric ward, and he's like, these people all have some sort of gift, but there's no initiation for the shaman in today's modern world. So what do? Oh, these person's a loony bin, like we're going to throw them in there and drug them up, and that's what happens. And, I had an ex say to me, she's like, you're the shaman of your family. I'm like, thanks. Like, that's a good point. Like, I never thought of it like that. Yeah. You hear these little messages from other people. It's like your soul whispering to you, like, little hints, and you can choose what you want to do with them. You can either bypass it as, whatever. But then it's like, it's what's a more empowering, perception, to think that you just buy into what society said and go, oh no, I'm fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Or and
it's funny you say that though. Sorry, man. Sorry to disturb you. I had someone say something literally identical to that to myself just a few days ago, and it all came off the back of just sitting down, doing a little bit of breath work and doing a little bit of thinking, and then decided to go for a bath and just chill out and, you know, let my body relax, and did a little bit of breath work in the bath, and got out of the bath and just felt compelled to write, and no thinking involved whatsoever, man. Just started writing. And all of a sudden came this like this piece, and I ended up reading it to one of my clients, just because I thought it was interesting. And he was like, holy fucking shit, dude. That's just unlocked life for me.
Wow.
And I'm just like, whoa, it's really nice of you to say, man. You get that feeling, you know, when somebody says that to you, it's like, holy shit, it was just me writing. But it's like, you can start to see, and, you know, I've started to read this back to myself and really understand it for what it's worth, is that this didn't come from my thought, didn't come from education. This came from energy itself. It came from like a deeper understanding of my own body, to be able to explain it in a human sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
And it's fucking, when you get, I mean, it sounds, trying to say this out loud, obviously it's being played through my mind. To my mind's going, dude, you're fucking crazy. What's going on? But my body's telling me, it's like, God, this is so good. This is so good. This feels great. Yeah. And it's, I guess, you know, when you have those sorts of experiences, because we try and pay attention to our mind so much, we get that, don't we? We get that thing. It's like, dude, what you're saying right now, that's fucking nuts. That's fucking batshit crazy. So you go, oh, okay. And then you go back into your little shell and you keep that little thing to yourself. All the while it's bubbling up, trying to escape, and then it makes you feel crazy because you're paying too much attention to your mind.
Yeah, totally. And like, you look at anyone throughout history who's made an impact, they were labeled crazy. They were labeled nuts. Like, they would have actually had to accept part of them that is fucking delusional to challenge the status quo. You know what I mean? Like, you have to believe in a vision that's beyond what's happening in the current reality, in that current scheme of things. That's exactly what Gandhi did, exactly what Martin Luther King did. You know, you look at anyone that's gone through and made an impact. They've believed in a vision of the future greater than the current, you know, the current happenings of reality. And they've been able to move people to see that vision as well. And that's the only thing that's created change. You know what I mean? And it's a common thread. They have all influential people have one common thing in common throughout history. They have a clear purpose. You know what I mean? They know their purpose. They know why they're here. They've gotten in tune with that. And so, to tap in what you were saying about before is like something beyond, you know, the physical plane, you could say. Like, I started looking into what is a transient phenomenon, and I couldn't find anything online. I couldn't find anything. What is a transient phenomenon? This is what they ended up saying, or was diagnosed with
the doctor.
Transient. Yeah, the doctor, right?
Yeah.
So I started just researching the etymology of each word. And so transient obviously means passing. So like, our lives are lightning, you know, a flash of lightning in the grand scheme of, you know, in the grand scheme of time.
Yeah.
You know, the planet's been, you know, the universe is like 14.5 billion years old, is from what we know now. You know, it's probably older, longer, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, our life is like a flash of lightning. Then I was like, all right, what's a phenomena? And so phenomena is like something that is, you know, unexplainable.
Yeah.
Almost unexplainable. And so if you think about it, like, you're a phenomenon. You, like, every single person listening to this is a phenomenon. Like, you were once a sperm and an egg, and they met, and they fucking grew and evolved, and now you're this fully fledged human being, capable of you're capable of anything anyone else has done in history. Like, there's no difference between you and them. You have a heart, you have a heartbeat, you have a brain, you have eyes. Like, there's no, like, a physical difference. Like, we have this 99.99% same DNA as a fucking fruit fly.
Yeah.
No, there's no difference between human beings, let alone a fruit fly, you know, like, you know, so anything that, like, we're capable of so much more, but we have been indoctrinated. As soon as we learn to walk and talk, we're told to sit down and shut up.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
we're told to sit down and shut up, and then from there, you know, it's like
Cross your legs, fold your arms.
Yep. And from there, we're taught just enough to operate the machine, but dumb enough so that we don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what's happening now on a mass scale. And every single human being right here, right now, Joey, has negotiated to be here in this time, in this era.
Mm.
You know, and when this shit kicked off globally, and I started seeing what, you know, the conspiracy theorists were saying, you know, for the last 7 years, you know, I didn't really get into it. My brother told me about it, and he got into it because he's into rap and he listened to Tupac and Biggie, and that was his start of his journey. And he fully woke up to the truth. And then, you know, when this shit kicked off, I did my first conscious mushroom experience. It was amazing, and I went and I seen in my mind's eye like my worst nightmare of what reality will look like, and I seen human beings all shuffling with these chains around their arms and their legs, shuffling to the fucking slaughterhouse, single file, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that was my worst nightmare in my mind at the time of what was going to happen if this whole thing came true. And I remember just feeling like no matter what happens, and if that did happen for 50, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, nothing can break the human spirit. Nothing. So nothing on the physical, mortal plane can harm an immortal spirit.
Yeah.
Nothing outside of us can harm an eternal soul. And when I got that, I realized like there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, sometimes you lose touch with that and you get caught up in the noise and the stories on the outside, but it's all just a fucking story. And the only one thing that we know is true is that we're immortal. If you put all the mass of the human beings together and you put it in one superposition, it'd be the size of a fucking sugar cube.
Yeah.
So we are just energy. We are more energy than we are matter, than we are physical.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that, man. I believe it.
And it's not, but it's beyond belief because it's like, it's a scientific fact. If you start, you know, looking in quantum physics, quanta means light, the study of light. And so we turn off the lights right now, it's dark. It's complete nothingness, right? But as soon as we turn on light, it's just light particles refracting off itself, bouncing off itself. And that's what gives us the physical appearance that something's, you know, this wall behind me is solid, you know. But if we, you know, took what this is made from and we put it under a microscope, we just see atoms zipping around. If we put it under a infrared, what do they call them? Not infrared microscope, electromagnetic microscope, ones that can see the atoms, you know, we'd see it's just energy.
Yeah.
You know, and everything is that. And it's like, if we look at the, you know, and what holds all this matter and consciousness, like what holds it all together is this unconditional love. Because wherever love is, there's more order and organization. Like within the body, if there's disorder and incoherence, that's where disease occurs. There's a lowering of vibration in the body.
Yeah.
And so the energy and the signal between the brain, the master organ, to the, you know, the part of the body, there's an incoherence. It's not getting a clear message. And so love and gratitude are the greatest healers on the face of the earth. And so everything that holds matter together is love. Like, think about the moment, you know, every human being was conceived. Like it came from their heart, a connection with another human being. And then through there, it came through, you know, the old magical romance.
Yeah,
exactly. But, you know, the heart was beating at that time. And what's beating a heart?
The energy.
And if we went to a quantum physicist and a theologian and we asked them, you know, what's God or what's energy, they'd say the same thing. It's timeless, childless, massless, spaceless. It's moving into form and out of form.
Yeah, man. Man, I can really start to paint a picture now of like why it is you do what you do. Like I can really start to see now, like there's such a huge amount of passion for the understanding that you've gone into and the depths you've gone into to sort of understand this. Or like I got this like the basic understanding, if you know what I mean. Like I understand the energetic side of things. I understand like that you know, love is what matters. Like if you bring everything back to you, if you bring everything back to self, you're always going to end up bringing back to the energy that you want to put out.
Yeah.
So if you can transform that into love for yourself, then you can transform that into love for the world, because your love is the same as any amount of love that's been put out there. It's the same as any energy. You can, if you can transform it in you, you can transform it externally. And I can really see, like, man, like going into this detail through your journey, man, it's fucking incredible. Like you have had me literally wrapped and hypnotized, like, by this conversation that we've been having, man. It's fucking phenomenal. Like this has only ever happened to me once on a show before, man. And that was I think it was back in episode 4 when somebody opened up to me for the first time about the story. I was just so taken aback that they were telling me all this stuff. I was just like literally speechless. But this is a different experience, man. I've been like, you've had my little child in me. It was just like eyes wide open going, oh my God, this is amazing. Tell me more. Tell me more. At first, I'll be honest with you, man. I was a bit skeptical at first. So I heard the story, you know, my brain kicked in and was like, dude, is this guy just fucking crazy? And after a while, I was like, yeah, he is, but it's like crazy in the way humans describe crazy, as in like we can't understand it because we're not willing to open our mind up and our body enough to really absorb what, you know, what's being trying to be told here. But you know, it's everything you said makes sense, man. Like, you know, the whole journey from that massive stress induced moment, you know, when you stood on the literally falling off, this platform, which is, you know, just started this mad journey for yourself, this real like awakening and understanding of how to not just first help yourself, but how to communicate this to the world. One beautiful thing that I really like that you said, man, is that it's up to the individual whether they're ready or not. I don't think you said it in those words, but I remember something along the lines of like, if somebody wants to sit and you know, take this on and, you know, shut down and go, yeah, oh my God, you know, this is just, I just want to go back to my place of anger and sadness, then, you know, those people unfortunately are not ready to step out of the box to be helped. But you've got all this information and knowledge for the people that go, you know what, fuck, there is something different. You know, there can be something different. Like, talk to me, tell me what it is. Like, let me sit here and just listen and be transformed back to that early child. Like you've had me wrapped up in, man, for the past couple of hours, which has been phenomenal, mate. It's like, it's really good. Like, as you were talking, I could feel my guts and, you know, my energy centers like literally tingling, man. I was like, fuck, this is so cool. But it's I can see, you know, where the passion comes from now to really want to help people and to really, you know, give them the opportunity when they're ready to be open for this sort of thing. But it's you know, it's the journey's not easy, is it? The journey's not easy at all.
Oh, you get your challenges, man. And like I learned from, you know, that, you know, some people aren't ready to wake up when you want them to, you know what I mean? Like, particularly with family members, you know, it's like, oh, you know, I just learned this stuff, and you kind of just dump it onto them, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, you fruitcake? And you're like, you know, I'm grateful for all those experiences, because it's like, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm wrong, I'm bad. And I'm like, actually, nah, this is an opportunity for me to become a communicator, a better way to articulate things. And And yeah, like I've come to accept that everyone's on their own journey, and when they're ready, they will find you and you will find them.
Mm.
You know, because not everyone's ready to, you know, wake up. Not everyone's ready to go embark on that journey. You know, and like I'm not interested in trying to save people.
Yeah.
You know, I can't go and I can't, you know, like, you know, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just there to go, you know, to show them like, look how fucking amazing the journey is from the grass to the fucking, to the lake and the stream, and look how phenomenal look how clean and crisp and pure the water is. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Let's have a sip. Let's drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful, man. Like, you give me a lot to think about, dude. Like, you've confirmed a lot of things for me today. You've made me ask a lot of questions to myself while you've been talking. Yeah, it's been, your story's just gonna grow. I can tell. Like, this is part one of, I don't know how many parts. I can tell.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling, man. It's,
Yeah.
but you, like, going back to when we first met, I was thinking about this when we reconnected a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, this guy is very, very different now, very, very different. Because I think, I remember, like, I've got this vivid image in my head. We were sat on a rock, me and you, right next to this little stream of where we were walking.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there about to tuck into your food, and you're trying to sell me on veganism. And I'm just like, no. this guy's lost, but you are trying your hardest to sell me on veganism. And at that time, like, I think we were both in a very similar spot in terms of, like, I had my belief, and I was like, no one's gonna fucking get me off meat. Not a chance. Like, meat is my life. And you're like, you've just had this enlightening journey, and you're like, no, fucking veganism, dude, you've got to try it. It's the best thing. And it's like it's this kind of, I suppose, this battle that's gone on in my own mind. And to this point now where you've grown, it's like you've sort of understood. It's like,
it's all the veggies I've been eating.
Yeah, obviously. You got to this point now where you've gone from that part, and it's like that guy that I knew once then, that guy was trying to sell me hard on his belief of something better. When now you're this open guy that just wants to give, and it's not about trying to convince or trying to convict, you know, somebody into something that they're not ready for, or something that they've got a closed mind to. You're just like, this is the information, and I've got it. If you know, if you want to go on this journey with me, I'm open to you.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go on this journey with me, then, you know, you don't have this. The information is always going to be there for you. This my knowledge and my wisdom is always going to be there for you, which is, it's beautiful, man, because it's like you've got this. One thing I love that you said to me on our last chat, you mentioned that this causa duality, and it's like you've really got this balance between giving and receiving. Like, you've got it. Like, it's obviously nothing is ever going to be still. It's always going to be, one's going to be one way, one's going to be the other. But it's so as calm as possible that you're willing to give and you're willing to receive whenever it's ready. And it's a beautiful thing to see, man. Really, really is.
Appreciate it, Joey.
Yeah, man. Well, look, dude, I'm running out of time here, dude. Like, I always try and leave as much time as possible for these, and this has been a fucking awesome talk, and that's why I said there's definitely a part 2, maybe 3, 4, 5. Who the hell knows, dude? Sure, but yeah, man, this is, honest to God, this has been an absolutely beautiful conversation to have, even though it's been more of a listening thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you're doing some fantastic work, dude, and I can, you know, I've seen your stuff out there on Facebook, and I think what you're offering to people and the service that you're trying to provide for people it's a beautiful way to start to adapt to a new reality for yourself. And I think the way you said it, in terms of, you know, finding your power to really unlock your potential, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head for a journey that you're willing to take people on, brother. It's really, really cool to see.
Thanks.
No worries, man. Well, let's tie in, let's tune up. We'll have a chat, and we'll definitely book in for round 2, and you can take us more on a journey, brother.
Love to.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Brett. It's been an absolute gift to have you on today, dude. And we'll definitely be speaking again soon, mate.
Appreciate it, Joey. Thank you for the invite.
Cheers, dude. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Naked Reality, and a massive show of gratitude to our guest who got naked about their mental health stories today in the studio with us. Also, a big thanks to our sponsor here for 2020 and 2021, getsome.com.au, providing some amazing supplements from Origin Labs all the way in the USA and supporting our military veterans. Stay tuned for this important announcement.
For anyone listening that's in need of any support for any reasons for their mental health, please contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224636, or for the ages of 12 and 25 years old, eHeadspaces at 1-800-650-890, or for the ages of 5 to 25, Kids Helpline on 1-800-55-1800, or if you're in need of any immediate support, please contact Lifeline on 131114, and they're available 24/7 for those in Australia. If you are looking for any more numbers, if you can visit healthdirect.gov.au/mental health lines. There's a lot of numbers there for specific topics. And also on our website is ONU, that's o-nu.com.au/mental-health-support-lines. We have a list of phone numbers and contact details for many of the main areas around the world. If you are in need of any support, or you do know someone that this would benefit, please share this around to anyone you think may need it. Thank you.